The weeks following her encounter with Alex were transformative for Mimi. For the first time in a long while, she began to feel like herself again. Her mornings were no longer dominated by dread, but filled with purpose and optimism. Danny's laughter seemed brighter, Titi's companionship warmer, and her own reflections softer. Alex's business card remained on her bedside table, a quiet reminder of their conversation at a park. She hesitated to reach out. Her past had left her wary of forming new relationships, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to open that door just yet. But one Sunday afternoon, as Danny built a Lego tower in the living room, Mimi decided to take a chance. She picked up the card and dialed the number. "Hello?" Alex's voice came through, steady and warm. "Hi, Alex. It's Mimi. We met at the park a few weeks ago," she began, her nerves tingling slightly. "Mimi, it's great to hear from you," Alex replied, his enthusiasm genuine. "I was wondering if your offer for a playdate was still open," she said, glancing at Danny, who was now trying to stack Legos taller than himself. "Absolutely," Alex said. "How about next Saturday? My daughter Ella would love to have some company." They agreed on a time and location, and when the call ended, Mimi felt a small but profound sense of accomplishment. The following Saturday, Mimi and Danny arrived at a cozy cafe with a children's play area. Alex and Ella were already there, waving at them from a corner table. Ella was a charming little girl with curly hair and a gap-toothed smile. She and Danny hit it off instantly, diving into the play area with unbridled energy. Mimi and Alex watched from the table, their conversation flowing easily. Alex shared stories about Ella, his work as a graphic designer, and the challenges of single parenting. Mimi opened up too, though she tread lightly around her past with Kunle. "There's a lightness about you," Alex observed, his tone thoughtful. "It's refreshing." Mimi chuckled softly. "It's been a journey to get here." Alex nodded. "I understand. We've all got our battles, but it's inspiring to see someone come out stronger." The afternoon passed quickly, and as they parted ways, Alex handed Mimi a small piece of folded paper. "What's this?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just a little something for when you're having a tough day," Alex said, with a smile before walking away with Ella. Later that evening, Mimi unfolded the note. It read, "In the middle of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer." A smile spread across her face. It wasn't just the quote that touched her, it was the kindness behind it. Mimi and Alex began to see each other more often, their friendship blossoming naturally. For Mimi, it was a breath of fresh air, a reminder that life could offer moments of joy even after heartbreak. Mimi's newfound connection with Alex brought a sense of balance to her life, but the shadows of her past lingered, refusing to fade completely. Though she tried to push thoughts of Kunle aside, a part of her knew that unresolved issues had a way of resurfacing. One evening, as Danny was in bed and Titi was in her room, Mimi sat at her dining table flipping through old documents. Among them were her marriage certificate, photographs, and legal paperwork tied to her life with Kunle. She paused when her fingers brushed against the envelope containing Kunle's termination letter from his former job. Her mind drifted back to the call she had made to his office months ago, the chilling details his boss had shared about Mandy. Despite her decision to leave Kunle, she had avoided delving too deeply into the events. Now curiosity gnawed at her. Mimi reached for her laptop, hesitating for a moment before typing Mandy's name into the search bar. Several articles appeared, one of which caught her attention. CCTV footage leads to scandal at Tech Corp. Her stomach twisted as she clicked on the link. The article detailed Mandy's assault in the office and Kunle's subsequent dismissal. Though Mandy had chosen not to press charges, the story had been widely circulated, tarnishing Kunle's reputation. Mimi's hands trembled as she read the account of Mandy's ordeal. She couldn't fathom how the man she once loved had turned into someone capable of such cruelty. Yet, she felt an odd sense of relief knowing she had made the right decision to leave him. The next day, Mimi received an unexpected call from Kunle's mother, Mrs. Oladipo. "Mimi, my dear," the elderly woman began, her voice heavy with emotion. "I know you've moved on, but I need to talk to you about Kunle." Mimi's chest tightened. "What is it, Mama?" "He's in a bad place, Mimi. He was arrested a few days ago for assaulting a woman at a club," Mrs. Oladipo said, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to help him anymore." Mimi closed her eyes, her mind racing. Though her heart ached for Mrs. Oladipo, she couldn't bring herself to feel sympathy for Kunle. His actions had brought them to this point, and he alone bore the consequences. "I'm sorry, Mama," Mimi said gently, "but I can't get involved. My priority is Danny." There was a long pause before Mrs. Oladipo sighed. "I understand, my dear. Just promise me one thing. Don't let Kunle's mistakes overshadow the wonderful life you've built for yourself." "I won't," Mimi said firmly, her resolve hardening. That evening, Mimi shared the news with Alex. They sat in her living room, the soft glow of the table lamp casting shadows on the walls. "You've done everything you could, Mimi," Alex said, his voice steady and reassuring. "You gave him chances, and he chose his path. You don't owe him anything." Mimi nodded, the weight on her chest easing slightly. I want to make sure Danny grows up in a safe, loving environment. I want him to know that no matter what, he's not defined by his father's actions." Alex smiled, reaching for her hand. "And he will, because he has you, strong, loving, and determined. That's more than enough." As Mimi leaned back against the couch, a quiet sense of closure washed over her. She wasn't responsible for Kunle's downfall, but she was responsible for her own happiness, and she intended to claim it fully. 2 years had passed since Mimi had left Kunle, and her life had taken a remarkable turn. Danny was thriving in school, growing into a bright, curious boy whose laughter now filled the once tense household. Titi had become more than just a nanny. She was family, and her unwavering support had been a cornerstone of Mimi's healing journey. Alex had also become a permanent fixture in their lives. His kindness and stability brought to Mimi a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. They were taking things slowly, blending their lives cautiously but meaningfully. It wasn't just about building a relationship for themselves, it was about creating a solid foundation for Danny too. One sunny afternoon, Alex invited Mimi and Danny to a small picnic at the park. The day was perfect, the sky a clear expanse of blue, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass. Danny ran around with other children, his laughter echoing across the park as Mimi and Alex spread out a checkered blanket under the shade of a tall oak tree. "You seem happier," Alex said, handing her a sandwich he had prepared. Mimi smiled, her gaze following Danny as he played. "I am. It feels like I can finally breathe again, like the weight of the past isn't holding me down anymore." Alex reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You've come so far, Mimi, and you've done it with such grace. I'm proud of you." Her heart swelled at his words. For so long, she had doubted her strength, but hearing Alex acknowledge it made her believe it herself. Back at home that evening, as Danny dozed off with a storybook clutched in his tiny hands, Mimi found herself reflecting on how far they had come. The house, once a place of tension and unease, was now filled with light and love. The phone buzzed on the counter, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from her lawyer. "Divorce finalized. All legal ties with Kunle are severed." Mimi stared at the screen for a moment, emotions swelling within her. Relief, joy, and a touch of sadness for the dreams that had once been tied to Kunle. But mostly, she felt free. She walked over to the window, looking out at the quiet street. A sense of closure washed over her, stronger than she had anticipated. This was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. A few weeks later, Alex invited Mimi and Danny to dinner at his home. It was their first time visiting, and Mimi was impressed by the warm, welcoming atmosphere Alex had created. The meal was simple but delicious, and Danny couldn't stop talking about Alex's dog, a gentle golden retriever named Max. After dinner, as Danny played with Max in the living room, Alex led Mimi to the back porch. The stars sparkled brightly in the night sky, and the cool evening air carried the faint scent of jasmine. "Mimi," Alex began, taking her hands in his. "I've loved you and Danny for a long time. You've brought so much joy and meaning to my life, and I want us to continue building this happiness together." Mimi's breath caught as Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice filled with hope and love. Tears welled in Mimi's eyes as she nodded, unable to find the words to express what she felt. "Yes," she finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. As Alex slipped the ring onto her finger, a new chapter of their lives began. A chapter filled with love, healing, and the promise of a brighter future. The weeks following Alex's proposal were a whirlwind of excitement and careful planning. Mimi, Alex, and Danny began the journey of blending their lives into one. They decided to keep the engagement low-key, sharing the news only with close friends and family. For Mimi, this wasn't just about marrying Alex. It was about creating a secure and loving environment for Danny. Danny was over the moon when he learned about the upcoming wedding. "Does this mean Alex will be my daddy now?" he asked one evening, his big, curious eyes looking up at Mimi. Mimi knelt to his level and smiled. "Alex loves you like a daddy would, sweetheart. He'll always be here for you." Danny's grin lit up the room. "That's awesome. Can Max come to the wedding too?" Mimi laughed, tousling his hair. "We'll see about that." Planning the wedding was an intimate affair. Alex and Mimi chose a small, picturesque garden venue, surrounded by flowers and tall trees. It reflected the peace and beauty they had found together. Titi, ever the reliable friend and helper, took on the role of wedding planner, ensuring every detail was perfect. As the big day approached, Mimi found herself reflecting on her journey. The scars of her past, though still present, had faded in the light of the love she now experienced daily. She no longer felt like a woman weighed down by her circumstances. She felt like someone reborn. On the morning of the wedding, Mimi stood in front of the mirror, dressed in a simple yet stunning white gown. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and a delicate veil rested on her shoulders. Titi stood behind her, fastening a small pearl necklace around her neck. "You look beautiful, Mimi," Titi said, her voice thick with emotion. Mimi smiled at her reflection. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Titi. Thank you for everything." Titi hugged her gently. "You deserve this happiness, Mimi. Never doubt that." The ceremony was everything Mimi had hoped for: intimate, heartfelt, and full of love. Danny walked down the aisle, holding a small pillow with the rings, grinning from ear to ear. Alex stood at the altar, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw Mimi. As they exchanged vows, Mimi felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had found her way through darkness and into the light, and now she was committing herself to a man who truly cherished her and her son. "I promise to love, honor, and cherish you," Alex said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "And I promise to be the father Danny deserves." Mimi's tears fell freely as she spoke her own vows, her heart full of hope and love. At the reception, laughter and joy filled the air. Danny danced with Max, who had indeed been allowed to attend, much to everyone's amusement. Mimi watched her son with a full heart, grateful for the family they were building. As the night wound down, Alex pulled Mimi aside. "I have one more surprise for you," he said, leading her to a quiet corner. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note: "A new home for our new family." Mimi looked up at Alex, her eyes wide with surprise. "You bought us a house?" Alex nodded, a warm smile spreading across his face. "It's close to Danny's school, with plenty of space for him to play. I want us to start this new chapter with a fresh beginning." Tears welled in Mimi's eyes again, but this time there were tears of pure joy. She hugged Alex tightly, feeling the weight of her past finally lift. Her new life, a life filled with love, security, and promise, was just beginning. The drive to their new home was a quiet yet emotional one. Alex had insisted on keeping the house a surprise until the day they moved in. Danny, full of excitement, kept asking questions from the back seat. "Does it have a big yard, Mom? Can Max have his own space? Are there lots of trees?" Mimi turned around, smiling at him. "You'll see soon, sweetheart." When Alex finally pulled into the driveway, Mimi gasped. The house stood proudly at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, surrounded by lush greenery. It was a modern, two-story home painted a soft cream color, with large windows that let in plenty of natural light. A garden full of blooming flowers lined the pathway to the front door. Danny leaped out of the car, running toward the yard. "It's huge!" he shouted, his laughter echoing through the neighborhood. Mimi stepped out slowly, her hand covering her mouth. "Alex, It's perfect. Alex came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. Welcome home. The first few weeks were spent settling in. Mimi and Alex unpacked boxes while Danny explored every corner of the house, often calling them to show off his latest discovery. Look, there's a secret closet under the stairs, he announced one evening. Not a secret anymore, Alex teased, earning a giggle from Danny. The house quickly became a home filled with warmth, laughter, and love. The backyard turned into Danny's favorite spot where he and Max spent hours running around or playing catch. One Saturday morning, Mimi sat on the patio, sipping coffee as she watched Alex and Danny build a birdhouse. Danny's small hands clumsily held a hammer, while Alex guided him patiently. Careful now, buddy, Alex said, holding a nail steady. Danny squinted in concentration. Like this. Exactly. You're a natural kiddo. Mimi smiled, her heart full. This was the life she had always dreamed of. Simple, peaceful, and surrounded by love. As the days turned into months, Mimi found herself rediscovering her passions. With Alex's encouragement, she began painting again, something she hadn't done since her university days. One evening, as she worked on a canvas in the spare room they had turned into a studio, Danny walked in holding a drawing. Can I paint too, Mom? He asked, holding up a picture of a rocket ship. Mimi laughed. Of course, sweetheart. Let's get you set up. Before long, the two of them were seated side by side, painting and chatting. Danny's enthusiasm was infectious, and Mimi felt a deep sense of connection with her son. Though life was mostly smooth, challenges still arose. Alex had a demanding job, and Mimi was still healing from the emotional scars of her past. But they faced these challenges together, leaning on each other for support. One evening, after Danny had gone to bed, Alex found Mimi sitting on the couch, staring at an old photo album. Are you okay? He asked, sitting beside her. Mimi nodded slowly. I was just thinking about how far we've come. Alex took her hand in his. And we'll keep moving forward. Together. Mimi smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. I know. Their new beginning wasn't just about the house. It was about building a life where love, respect, and kindness were at the center. For the first time in years, Mimi felt truly at peace